Fooly Cooly! Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and welcome to something I'm gonna call Fooly Cooly Week on the channel. Fooly Cooly Season 2, or Fooly Cooly Progressive, is going to be airing this Saturday night, June 2nd on Adult Swim. Man, if you can't already tell, I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna break out and do a jig. Screw it, let's do it. Yeah! Okay, so here's the deal. Fooly Cooly, in case you do not know, is my favorite anime of all time. That is a spot in my heart that is forever taken away by the whimsical Haruko and Samajima Mamimi and Naota and Kanti, the robot with a television for a head. Alright, whenever someone asks me that, you know, what's your favorite anime or what's your favorite television show, it goes beyond just the simple plot or the characters of that particular medium that you're asking me about. There has to be something special tied to it, okay? So, it's not just the plot, it's not just the cast, although that's a huge part of it, obviously. It's the nostalgia factor for me, and going more than just nostalgia, it, you know, makes me remember a simpler time, way back in 2006. There are some people watching this right now that I know. I check my demographics on my audience every now and then, and I know there's people that are either, you know, that were either really little kids in 2006 or possibly were born in 2006. So that just blows my mind. But more than nostalgia is the importance that this anime played in my life. Okay? Because I watched this anime at the exact point in my life that I needed to. All right, it really did a lot more for me than it just shows at face value. Now, I'm feeling like I'm repeating myself, because I've made a few videos about Fooly Cooly before, and repetition is going to be part of this. I know back in like 2014, I think I made a video where I was doing like a draw my life sort of thing, where I was talking about Fooly Cooly. I've talked about this when it was, when the new seasons were announced, I made a video about this. I've talked about this on live streams before. So this is going to be story time with Tekking. This is going to be me telling the story of what Fooly Cooly means to me personally. So if you're a longtime veteran of the channel, you've probably already heard this story before, but I have about 270-something thousand subscribers now. I'm getting more all the time. So I know there's a good chunk of you that are not just going back through my backlog of videos and like, oh man, I need to watch every video Tekking made. I'm a true fan. So I'm going to be telling this story again. Probably it seems like, for the third or fourth time. So if you've already heard it, then this isn't the video for you. This is going to be Fooly Cooly Week, though. But for right now, though, let's tell the story of old. All right. So, it's fall of 2006. All right. I am 13 years old. I am currently in 8th grade. I'm in middle school in America. So I'm kind of apprehensive, kind of nervous. And, I'm going into my teenage years. Now, you can already see how awkward I am now. So you can kind of scale that up a little bit. And that's where we're at in Tekking's teenage years, okay? Not a very popular kid. Kind of a weirdo. If you would believe such of a thing. So it's fall of 2006, right? And I'm a fan of anime at this point, but the amount of anime that I have watched by 2006 is extremely limited. Probably less than 10. I had no money, so I could not buy DVDs. We had dial-up internet still, which is another thing that I'm sure maybe a lot of you in this... I know a lot of you are older and you know about all this stuff, but there's probably a few people that are like, oh yeah, I've heard about dial-up. We never had to deal with that. But so I couldn't go on the internet and stream stuff. A lot of the websites that we watch stuff on now didn't even exist back then. So even if I did have decent internet, it's not a guarantee. YouTube was in its early days back then. I think that was back when YouTube's slogan was still broadcast yourself. Until YouTube, realized that they don't want people to broadcast themselves, So, that's the mindset. I'm 13 years old. I'm in 8th grade. Didn't have a lot of friends. And the only anime that I've really watched up to that point are mostly battle shonen, because that was what was showing on Toonami. That's what was popular. I don't even think I got into Bleach yet. I think Bleach didn't happen until, I think I might have seen like an episode now and then, but I don't think I really got into Bleach until it was the following summer. It was summer of 2007. That's when I really got into Bleach and Full Metal Alchemist. But before that, we have Dragon Ball Z, obviously, Battle Shonen, probably the most iconic out of all of the Battle Shonen. Yu Yu Hakusho, that was also one that was heavily based on, tournaments and just straight up brawling. We had Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, which weren't, in the same exact fashion, not the exact same kind of fighting. But Pokemon was much more angled for a younger demographic, and you had Yu-Gi-Oh!, which, for kids handled Yu-Gi-Oh! So you weren't going to get a lot of stuff from that. That's for a more mature audience. And beyond that, pretty much just Naruto. Oh yeah, and the One Piece 4 Kids dub. So yeah, mostly just Naruto, Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's like that's all you got. I was a fan of those shows, but I wasn't really to the point where I was researching all about anime and stuff. You have to understand, this was at a point in my life where I didn't really care about where these shows came from. I didn't even, when the first time I watched Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh!, I didn't sit down and think, who made this show? Where did it come from? I didn't care. I didn't give a shit. I didn't care that Yu-Gi-Oh! Came from Japan. I didn't care about that. I didn't care that freaking Akira Toriyama created Dragon Ball. I didn't care about the authors. I didn't care about the place. I was like a little kid. And just I'm just gonna watch, Goku, fight with lasers against another person fighting with lasers. That's all I cared about. This anime changed that, all right? That's what changed it. Okay, now I'm going to show you something here, all right? How many people in my audience know what this is? Okay? Now, this strange, boxy, black device is known as a VHS tape, all right? And you may see here it is labeled FLCL and then FLCL tape. It's labeled with it. One of those old school note generator things. Remember the kind you had to dial and turn? And man, this is like a blast from the past in this video. You got to turn the thing and you pop it out. I had one of those when I was a kid, and it was like one of the most exciting pieces of technology I owned. Anyway, so VHS tape. All right. So before the era of DVR, where you could just record everything, you could just go into the guide. The guide didn't exist. I mean, there was the TV Guide channel, but not the same guide. If you wanted to record something on TV, you had to have a VCR, and you had to have one of these. Also, you could have had beta, too, but that was something that was a little bit even before my time, and there were recordable DVDs as well. But most people up until TiVo and up until, Dish Network and Xfinity and all the different cable networks provided a DVR for you. Pretty much up until that, everyone still used these things. All right? So what you would do is you would put this tape in your VCR, and you would have to manually set in your VCR. And by the way, this is relevant to the story. I'm not just are you going off on a tangent about how VCRs worked? I'm like, no, this is relevant to the story. So you have to manually set what channel you want to record and for how long. Like if I wanted to record something on channel 32 from 6 p.m. to 6:30, I actually had to physically manually set it from that. This would record to the tape, and then you would have it perfectly fine. And I used to do this every night before I went to bed because I was also a big fan of Family Guy and Futurama back then. And I knew that Family Guy and Futurama would air on Adult Swim. But I had a bedtime back then, I had to go to bed around, I think, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And Futurama and Family Guy, they didn't air until 11 at night, I think. So I would record those episodes every single night. And then I would wake up the next morning, and then before I went to school every morning, I would rewind the tape and I would watch an episode of Futurama, then I would eat my breakfast, then I would watch an episode of Family Guy, then I would go to school. And that was my morning ritual for a very long time. And so, though, one night when I was setting the VCR, I messed up the recording. So what I was trying to do, I think I was trying to record from 11:30 to midnight. But I messed up the AM and PM, so instead of recording from 11:30 PM to 12 AM, I recorded from 11:30 PM to 12 PM. And so that's like 12 hours. Now, obviously, you're not going to fit 12 hours of recording on these things. These things capped off at usually around 3.5. Maybe you could get some, more expensive VHS tapes that had a little bit more on there, maybe like 4 hours plus. But yeah, you're not getting a lot of recording on this, really, in hindsight. But I messed up the recording. I went to bed, and what happened was it recorded from 11:30. That's when it started to 2:30 in the morning, maybe a little bit beyond that, and then the tape stopped, and then it rewound automatically. And I don't know if it started back again, like after it rewinds, it starts recording again. I don't exactly remember. But my point is, I woke up the next morning, and my recording was all messed up. I had all this extra stuff on the tape, and at first I was pissed, because this is my morning routine. And I'm like, what's going on here? And it wasn't until later, when I got back from school that day, and I'm sifting through the freaking tape, and I'm like, man, I messed it. Where's freaking Futurama? Where's freaking Family Guy? I stumbled upon the first episode. I just happened to catch this perfectly. The first episode of Fooly Cooly, that's just called Fooly Cooly, aired at that exact same time. Now, Fooly Cooly, history lesson here, is a OVA, original video animation. It only lasted 6 episodes, and it originally aired in Japan between 2000 and 2001. Then it was dubbed over here, and it began airing in 2003. So this was not the first time that Fooly Cooly had aired. It had aired on and off on Adult Swim periodically. And so this was 2006. So they just decided to run it again arbitrarily, and I just happened to be lucky enough to catch the exact right time during this this botched recording, and the first episode of the freaking series I happened to catch. Okay. I was mesmerized by that first episode. I was blown away by it, because it was anime, and I was used to that, but it was different. It didn't take place in a fictional world. Well, it did, but it didn't take place in, Dragon World, or in the Pokemon universe, or in Kanto, or in the village hidden in the leaves. There wasn't a really elaborate, setting here. It took place in just an ordinary town. Now, Yu Yu Hakusho takes place in a normal city where Yusuke grows up, but the main character, he wasn't firing laser beams from his finger. He was a kid. He was a 12-year-old kid. Naota Nandaba is his name, and he's just chilling out under a bridge, working on his homework, and there's this girl there who's an older girl, and I'm like, okay, well, where's this going? And they're talking about schoolwork and just ordinary stuff that teenagers talk about, and then all of a sudden, the older woman, Mamimi, jumps on Naota, and I didn't even realize what was happening at first. I'm 13. Okay, I'm maybe a little bit more oblivious than my classmates about this. Maybe they knew all about sex, and they knew all about what it meant to give somebody a hickey, and using tongue when you're kissing someone. Maybe they all knew about this, but I'm still very much, at 13, I was still probably wearing, race car pajamas. I was still very much in the innocence of childhood at that point. So, at first, I didn't even realize what was going on. Mamimi is tackling Naota, this 12-year-old kid. She's 17, and kissing him and giving him hickeys all over his neck. And I'm like, what the fuck? What's going on here? And the music kicks in, that soundtrack by The Pillows, and I was just immediately taken in by it. And the course of the episode, it's very, very kind of somber at the beginning. There's a little bit of a weird kind of vibe to it. There's not a lot of action. But then all of a sudden, freaking Haruko pops in. Pink-haired girl crashes into Naota with a freaking Vespa, this motor scooter thing, and then she starts freaking out, screaming all over the place. Then she kisses him to bring him back to life, and giving CPR. And I'm just sitting there I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of it, I had no idea what was going on, but I liked it. I just could not look away. So, after watching the entire episode, I made sure I watched it again, and then after that I watched it again, and then after that I watched it again. There was a day, and I think it was the weekend, I think this was on a weekend, so it was Friday when I first discovered this. The next day, Saturday, I think I spent all day in bed watching this tape over and over again. Like, I'm not even shitting you. Like, I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, I was sitting in my bed, I had a Pokemon VCR with a Pikachu remote, and I remember watching this over and over and over again, like a good 20 times. And by the end of the day, I was just like, I never got sick of it. I don't know if it's something that just has to do with the fact that when you're a kid, but I'll tell you what, like, I mean, I have a lot of shows that I'm a big fan of. I have a lot of movies that I really love, but there's a limit to how many times I could watch it back to back. This I watched back to back, and I remember I printed out the note thing and I taped it to it. I remember going up to my parents, because obviously you have blank VCRs all over the place, because people are constantly recording stuff. My mom is recording, like, cooking shows and soap operas, and my dad is recording, like, football and baseball games every now and then. So there's blank VCR tapes all over the place, and there's a constant fear that, you know, you're gonna get stuff overly recorded, and once something gets recorded over it, it's gone forever. You're not getting it back. So I remember going up to my parents and being like, you know, this tape is off limits. I kept it in a secret little area. I kept it, like, under my bed or like in my closet or something, so no one could find it and accidentally record over it, and I added the note to it. And here's the kicker, though. This was just the first episode, and I didn't have access to the other episodes. And I don't remember what happened, because you'd think that the first episode would, like, the first episode would air one week and the second episode would be the next week, but I don't remember. I didn't watch the next episodes until I got the DVD box set, so I don't know what happened. Maybe they didn't air it, or maybe that was, like, just a random thing they were showing just that one night, and they weren't showing any more of the episodes after that point, because they were all dubbed in 2003, so I don't know why. It might have been a thing, because there's only 6 episodes. It might have been a thing where, like, they aired it, like, every day, and I thought it was in the next weekend instead of they just aired it every single day and I just skipped it. I don't know. But I just had access to this one episode that I watched repeatedly, and just mesmerized by the characters. And there was a scene where they introduced manga into the anime, and I think that might be the first time I was ever exposed to manga, because I had not bought, like, I did not own any tankobons at that point. Like I said, not really into One Piece, not really into Bleach. I was into Naruto, but I don't think I owned any tankobons yet. I didn't even know what a tankobon was, really, because I didn't really go out. I didn't, like, go shopping at bookstores very much at that age, you know? So, I think the character that I was most interested in was Haruko, this very high-energy young lady with this Rickenbacker guitar that she's smacking people in the head with it. It's just, I think I was just amazed by how little sense it made, and how it seemed that they just threw everything together. But there was also this maturity factor with it. There was a scene in the episode where, you know, amidst all the craziness, this was like right after the fucking manga scene where everything's nuts. You know, there's a scene right after that where Naota goes rushing out into the middle of the night to go and find Mamimi, and this really, like, emotional music plays in the background, and it's Naota, you know, showing up to see Mamimi, and she's, like, smoking a cigarette, and it's like, I'm not used to seeing animated characters smoke, you know, I'm not used to these kind of situations, and so I think it really just opened the floodgates for me about what anime could be, beyond just, you know, people beating the shit out of each other. You know, that's still a big part of it, don't get me wrong, but it really opened it up that they could tackle a lot more serious subject matter. And I didn't realize it at the time. I kind of had to piece this together later on in my life. But the real big thing that resonated with me was that it's a metaphor for your teenage years. It's a metaphor for making a transition from childhood through your preteens into your teenage years. You're going through puberty, your hormones are raging, you live your life based more off emotion, and there's more than anything, for a lot of teenagers, you think you know exactly what you want, and you think you know exactly how the world works, but in reality, you really don't know shit. And that, all of that stuff is encapsulated perfectly in Fooly Cooly, because Naota's a 12-year-old, and all of the crazy wackiness going on around him is a metaphor for just how crazy and turbulent your teenage years can be. Naota tries to constantly act like he knows exactly what's going on, and that he is the mature one, and that everybody around him is lame and crazy, but he's the one that figured all this stuff out. All right, and throughout the course of the series, this 6-episode series, it's remarkable how much shit is packed into this. Throughout the course of just this 6-episode OVA, you get to see little different aspects and cracks in Naota's outlook on the world, where the series begins and he's like, yeah, my life is weird, but it's my life and I got it all figured out. And then slowly, that was a weird pronunciation, figured out. And it slowly begins to crack and break away, and he has to kind of realize, you know, he really doesn't know shit, you know, and it's something that I've watched multiple times. It's the only anime that I've ever bought twice. I have the DVD box set here, which ran for about $60. I saved up money and I bought it. And then you have this. Gainax re-released the DVD, I believe in 2011, which in and of itself is already 7 years ago, which is crazy. And they included all 6 episodes on like 3 different discs here, and on this re-release, every episode is on just 1 disc. So, yeah, and I hope to kind of go through this week with you and go more into detail with each of the characters. Saturday is when the next episode airs, is when season 2 airs, but it's not until like midnight. And I will be doing episodes reviews of this weekly, like every single, you know, like the next day, Sunday, if I have time. Hopefully I'll have time to talk about it the very next day, but I'll definitely do episode reviews of every single episode. And the next season, there's going to be 2 more seasons. There's going to be Progressive, which is airing now in next week in June, and then there's going to be Alternate, which is going to be airing in September. And we've actually already seen the first episode of Fooly Cooly Alternate, Season 3. It aired as a surprise for April Fool's Day, and it was Japanese voiced, but it was English subtitles. So that was kind of an interesting little sneak peek they gave us. But I'll be doing episode reviews of Season 2. I just wanted to share with you the story of Fooly Cooly. If you've already heard this, I apologize. But, yeah, if you've already seen this before, you might not have had the exact same experience as me, because I watched it, like I said, man, perfect time in my life to watch it at age 13, when I was just getting out of middle school, going to high school, and going through all of this. You might have watched it later on when it was not as significant, or you just didn't like the art style or the animation style, I guess, or the characters or whatever. You just couldn't get it. And I'll be honest with you, even now, you know, like well over 10 years later, I'm still not sure that I get it. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Later, everybody.